The WWF, what the world is watching. Turn it on and rip the knob off.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wrestling Memory Grenade, now at episode 191. And for those of you here on the Patreon world, you guys can see this time around, for the very first time in 191 episodes, we are coming to you also in video cast form. Unbelievable. And you guys can check it out right now. Anybody who is listening to this on the podcast side of things, you guys can go right over to patreon.com/WrestleCopia, part of the all access tier. $5 gets you all sorts of things, including early access to the grenade and etc. I want to welcome back someone from Grenade's past, but also from the recent definitive edition of the WrestleMania 5 review. It was a two-parter, and if you guys have 7 hours of time, or even an hour, 7 hours, 7 days in a week, yeah, that works out. But listen to an hour a day. Do whatever way you want to do it. But guys, go back. I encourage you to check it out. The mega powers have finally exploded here on the grenade. It took forever to get there, but well, we're going to see what happens, transpires coming out of that. Is this week, it is April 1989 of the World Wrestling Federation. We're talking all news and house show results. And we're bringing back one of the guests. I want to thank all the great guests we had as part of, well, first of all, I want to start off by thanking John Paz. In the videocast version of WrestleMania 5, John Paz of the two-man Power Trip Empire stopping by. We did that in two parts. You guys can check that out, the ultimate tier at the Patreon as well. And of course, all of the great guests we had over the 2 episodes here in the podcast world. Brian R. Solomon, going to start with him because he was the only guy to be part of both parts of the review. I want to thank Brian R. Solomon so very much. Also want to thank OVP's Joe Murata for climbing on board and helping me navigate the Brother Love, Roddy Piper, Morton Downey Jr. segment and beyond. That was a rough go. So had a blast with Mr. Joe Murata. Also, Jamie Ward stopped by, talked about actually being at the event, WrestleMania 5. Thank you, Jamie. Dave Dynasty of the Wrestling Nostalgia podcast. Of course, my brother Jesse was even part of part 2, covering one of our favorites, The Ultimate Warrior. He did not get an ultimate win against Rick Rude, but we'll have more on that as we move along here in 1989. And of course, last but certainly not least, he is the voice of Grenade's past, going way back to the earliest episodes of the Grenade. And he is here this week to cover April 89, news and results here in the World Wrestling Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steve Eckstad here to the program. Hey, welcome back, Steve.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Well, it's going, man. As you know, we had some hiccups here along the way this morning to try to get going. It took about a half an hour to get going, but we are going, guys. And Steve, I invited John to that the WrestleMania 5 review. You covered the Strike Force Brainbusters matchup, the Rick Martel heel turn, and all points in between. That was a really fun segment. But I felt like you got a little shafted after being here for so long. You know, you only got the one match, and so I wanted to bring you back. And this is kind of a light month because coming out of WrestleMania, the guys do get a little bit of time off, and some of the guys get sent over on a European tour typically. And that's pretty much what's going to happen here this week. And so I figured, why not have a little more discussion rather than just kind of read off some news, and we're going to be in and out in less than an hour. I figure, why not have some fun here? We're moving into the spring now of 1989. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Something about that 1989 wrestling scene was was awesome. You know,
Absolutely,
we covered NWA, and now you're covering WWF. So
it was
a very fun year.
Peak time to be a fan, I feel like, 1989. You know, you had Flair and Steamboat, Flair and Funk. We covered that extensively. I think about 36 episodes-ish of NWA 89, and now here we are, WWF 1989. And I want to welcome you back, man, to be part of this. Hopefully in the future, whether it's you, Steve, or if you're not available, somebody else, but specifically on these news and results episodes, I'd like to bring on a guest co-host. So stay tuned for that, guys, in the months to come here in 1989. More of a discussion rather than just reading some results and playing some sound bites and things like that. That's my end game, as they say. Somebody says it, I do believe. But we're going to get into it, man. We're going to jump into things 1989, April 89 news here in the WWF. And we're going to start off talking about the WWF Tag Team Division. May have never been hotter up and down the roster when you look at all of the teams that are here right now. Some of the house show feuds coming out of WrestleMania. We'll see the reigning WWF Tag Team Champions, Axe and Smash Demolition, still title holders after WrestleMania, defeating the Powers of Pain and Fuge the Stooge. The Demos taking on the Twin Towers. Talk about a battle of the big guys, right? I mean, Axe and Smash are typically the big guy team. It took a lot to get the Powers of Pain in here. They were a little bigger than Axe and Smash even, but now you're talking girth. You're talking Akeem, the African Dream, and the Big Boss Man, and they deserve it, right? Coming out of the Mega Powers feud, I think this was the bone, right? They built up. They certainly look like a credible opponent, challenger for Demolition.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's unfortunate we didn't get any of this on TV, really. You had to go to the house shows to see it. But this is a very, out of the matches that you have listed here, like this is one of those ones that are really awesome. Like Twin Towers were super over. Demolition was super over. It was just awesome. So, great bone for both of them, honestly. Demolition has been messing with Powers of Pain for a long time. So them getting somebody new and the Towers actually focusing on the actual tag division instead of, Macho and Hogan is pretty sweet too.
Yeah, no, it looks very viable. They very well could walk out with the tag team titles. I mean, really, when you think about it, this might be the first actual team where I'm seriously thinking Demolition are in trouble, and that's probably what they were looking at here as well. So we'll see how that plays out in house shows moving into the spring. For those of you who may not understand how the house show circuit worked after WrestleMania, typically any match that was considered worthy enough to kind of bring back and do the loop afterwards, we would get usually at least insert promos between the two guys, in the matches on the syndicated TV. Sometimes we would get one little segment to set up the storyline, the feud for the house shows to explain why the matches are happening. And then off to the races they go, and we really don't elaborate on it here on TV at all the way into SummerSlam pretty much. It's kind of interesting how they handle these spring house show quote-unquote feuds. But the Towers are coming for the belts. They defeated the Rockers as part of WrestleMania. And speaking of Rockers, we're going to see an angle coming up on TV very shortly here. We're going to see if the Rockers can sing beyond that Wrestle Rock Rumble, because they're going to create their own theme music. But we'll save that for that episode of TV. Right now, we do know the Rockers are going to be going into battle with the fabulous Rougeau brothers on the house shows. That'll eventually lead into some Iron Man, Iron Team type matches as well. But Rockers and Rougeaus, it seems on paper like those teams will be meant for each other.
Yeah, it's a perfect matchup. The speed and agility of the Rockers, the Rougeaus have some of that, and just the way the Rougeaus operate in the ring just goes perfect to get the opposite of what the Rockers are. So just a really great pairing, and I think we've talked about this 100 times, but the MSG market went down, and everybody kind of went down at the worst time because none of these Iron Man matches are out there of these two, which, man, I wish I could see one.
Yeah, the Spectrum and Boston and everything. I mean, right before they pop, we start losing these televised events, which is extremely unfortunate. And we'll talk a lot more about those when we get there here in Grenade time. But I did, for anybody watching on the video cast, I did highlight another match that's going to be making the rounds here. Because we see here highlighted, so Arn and Tully, they come in, the Brainbusters come in, and they almost immediately begin feuding with the Rockers. What a way to get started, right? So, phenomenal matches, no matter whether you're watching on the house shows, Saturday night's main event, whatever case the situation was, just one great match after another between those two teams. The Rockers go on to meet the Rougeaus, which, push purposes, we just saw the Rougeaus job to the Bushwhackers, speaking of. So we kind of see where the Rougeaus are. They need to be rebuilt, so to speak. So we're looking forward to those matches. Arn and Tully worked the Rockers basically from Survivor Series through WrestleMania. At WrestleMania, they get Strikeforce, which more of a storyline there, Rick Martel leaving Tito behind, but still another solid match. Now, whose Cheerios did they piss in, I have to wonder here, coming out of WrestleMania, because Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard are lumped in with Luke and Butch, the Bushwhackers. You can see my note right there simply reads, ew.
That was my thought when I did my own notes. Why? What did they do? And honestly, like if you think about it, if anybody can get something decent out of the Bushwhackers, it's going to be the Brainbusters.
Well, we're going to find out.
We'll find out. Yeah. If anybody can do it, I can see them doing it because they're the perfect blend of knowing how to sell and give their opponents something. And then when they take over, their offense is so good that the Bushwhackers can sell. We know that. On paper, yeah, it sounds terrible, but honestly, like Arn and Tully can do it.
Well,
out of anybody.
I remember growing up on the Bushwhackers. I know their limited abilities in the ring, especially once they get going here. I was pleasantly surprised the first few TV tapings they did. They were doing wrestling moves. They were moving. Butch was really moving fast in the ring. We even saw them in some competitive matches where they were taking bumps and things of that nature. All these things they realized later on, hey, mate, we don't need to do those things. That's not our gimmick. That's not our shtick here. But you also have to remember, these guys are 20-year veterans of the ring, going from Australia all the way over to the States and Portland and Florida and Memphis and all points in between. These guys know how to work, right, at the end of the day. Even if their bodies don't move like they used to, these guys have an idea of what to do in that ring and where to be in that ring. So maybe it won't be the prettiest of matches even here in 1989, but at the end of the day, yeah, clearly... And I left Mid-South out there because I'm envisioning them right now, the Sheepherders. They were huge in Mid-South, and Crockett, of course. They left Crockett to come here near the end of 89. And so Roman Gomez, which he covered UWF 86 with me, and I would trash on the Bushwhackers quite often. And Roman opened my eyes to something I never really looked at it before. He said, you know what? As terrible as the Bushwhackers gimmick was, he said, they earned that. They paid their dues. They bled every night for 20 years. And it was kind of a gift to them. Now you guys don't have to do anything, and you're going to get paid more than you've ever been paid in your entire life. So I do look at it like that. It's a different perspective than I ever put on it before. And so that much I'll give to. I still don't want to watch a Bushwhackers match. And I know there's like a super tape or something with like 3 in a row. So that's coming to the Coliseum Videocast, people. But
yeah, I think that's the first one. You're absolutely right. And I think, too, the world renowned. Like, people know who the Bushwhackers are. And Luke is out there, 76 years old, giving people stink faces on the indie scene right now. Pulled his pants down and gave him.
What do you think's worse, getting licked by Luke or getting a stink face by Luke? I can't imagine. I mean, either one, I would have to imagine you need vaccinated for, right?
Either one, you're going to smell like sardines coming out of it. So,
oh my God.
But kudos to them. Like, they did kill themselves essentially. If you go watch some of their Portland stuff, man, it's bloodbaths every night. It's great that they were able to get this WWF money and became stars, and everybody knows who they are. If you say the Bushwhackers, you know who you're talking about. They know who you're talking about.
What I'm looking forward to, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is watching a Bushwhackers Brainbusters match, because now I have a new set of goggles on, right? So when I watch this, I'm going to see how well they hold up in there with Arn and Tully. So I'm opening my eyes, hoping for different expectations than watching it in hindsight some 30 years ago or whatever the case was. So what we continue on, guys, we talked about some of the team feuds, if you will, on the house shows coming out of WrestleMania. Well, while we have a lot of teams gunning for the top, we also have a few teams being disbanded. And then, of course, that started at WrestleMania with the team of Strikeforce. They put them back together just to take them apart. Rick Martel turning heel on partner, that loser, Tito Santana. And soon we were going to see a new and improved Rick Martel, a heel Rick Martel with a manager by his side. We'll save that for when we get there. But Rick Martel and Tito, Strikeforce no more.
Yeah, I think that was just the ends to the mean. They want to do the heel turn. So honestly, I never really even knew that they were back together. I think Martel was in the Rumble, right, and then it was kind of thrown together that they were going to have this match. So I don't really recall like Strikeforce ever really getting back together outside of WrestleMania 5. So
no, yeah. Like I said, they put them together to take them apart, which is fine. And, in the story, at least Tito has told for years now in the shoot interviews and things, is that he's the one that wanted to turn heel. I've even seen people as recently as yesterday, their version of it is that Tito was promised he was the one turning heel. So I don't know if Tito said that or that was a fan going into business for themselves or whatever the situation was there. But I do believe that it was always going to be Rick Martel. Rick Martel said, I told them I wasn't even coming back if you weren't going to guarantee me a heel run. And so I'm glad Vince went with it, and I'm glad we're going to see Rick Martel as a heel here, eventually into the model gimmick before the end of the year, but that's a long ways off. Speaking of disbanded teams, they put these two together near the beginning of the year, December, January 89, something like that, talking about Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine. Well, it looks like coming out of WrestleMania, these guys will also be taken apart. They'll both still be stable mates, both managed by Jimmy Hart, but no longer a tag team. And Jimmy tried to get over the team name Double Trouble, baby. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. But we know they're going to get a different team name in about a year's time. So unfortunately, and that's a thing that's going to happen. But that's a ways off here on the Grenade. So we'll come back here to April '89 and talk about what they'll be doing coming out of WrestleMania. No real feuds in place for either guy, but I did find this amusing. Greg the Hammer Valentine's going to be opening the shows against the Blue Blazers. So kind of a fun backstory there. They're not playing it up on TV or anything, but it was Greg and his slow motion rope hitting that caused Owen Hart a groin injury at the Survivor Series trying to do a leapfrog. Owen's trying to move in real time versus Greg Valentine time. And so it's mistimed. And Owen, kudos to Owen. He finishes the match there at the pay-per-view, but he's out for a couple months after that. But he's back in action, working the hammer on the undercard here. And we'll see what happens there. It's the Honky Tonk Man that gets punished. Vince McMahon has it out for the Honky Tonk Man so badly. First of all, if you believe his story of what he pulled with the Intercontinental title in the main event and refusing the job to Randy Savage and et cetera, if you believe all that, and you come down to it, and of course he does the job to the Warrior at SummerSlam. Outside of the Warrior feud that followed there on the house shows, Honky Tonk hasn't done anything. And then they stick him with Greg Valentine. And then if you asked me who was going to do the job in that match with the Hart Foundation at WrestleMania, you would go, oh, Greg Valentine, of course, right? I mean, Honky Tonk Man's the former greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. But it was Honky Tonk who did the job, and that was peculiar. And then you come to find out that they told Honky he was doing the job. And I won't say he refused necessarily, but he certainly put up a fight. And that might explain why when I was talking to my brother, I noticed Honky didn't even bother to bring his guitar out for the match, which was part of the reason the match was even happening. He'd hit Brett with the guitar. So clearly Honky was not having a good night. He was doing the job. He did do the job to the Hitman there at the pay-per-view. And coming out of WrestleMania, Honky Tonk Man on the house shows is married to Hillbilly Jim, who hasn't even been working. It's like Vince plucked Hillbilly from home. Hey, you know all those guest appearances you're making all around selling Coliseum videos and shit, pal? I need you back here. I need you to work the Honky Tonk, man. It's like just, I don't know, man. Poor, I want to say poor Honky Tonk, but he kind of did it to himself.
So this all goes back to 1987. Like
I don't know. I mean, you could add it up. I mean,
SummerSlam.
I'm not there. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, Honky did the job at SummerSlam in record time, and he took great bumps, and he looked great doing it. So I'm not mad at him for that. I mean, he did business when he had to do the business, but unfortunately now, and then again going into WrestleMania, I've read it stating that he refused, but you don't really have that option, right? We saw him do the job. He got hit with the megaphone. Brett made the cover, and Honky and Hammer lose the match. I just, it's odd that it was Honky Tonk that was chosen to take the fall there, and he doesn't come out with a guitar, and he's kind of just there, and his offense is more miserable than usual in that match. So it's just, I don't know, man. I don't think it's just a coincidence that he's working fucking Hillbilly Jim here, man. That's all I'm getting at.
I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised either. It's just I never really paid attention to it.
Yeah.
As far as having heat, but I guess Honky is a heat magnet. he has his own mind made up on what he wants to do.
Well, so does Vince McMahon, right? You don't play games with the boss.
Well, Vince is the boss, so he can do what he wants to do.
That's right. Well, think about it. Moving forward, Honky really doesn't do a whole lot with anybody. I mean, he's going to have that Snuka feud on the house shows, and he's going to have the Bushwhackers and Rhythm. I mean, so you tell me who's being punished here. I mean, this is
Dusty. He gets Dusty at SummerSlam, and that's it. Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah, I mean, and he's taking a straight job there as well. Well, we'll get there in quite a while here, the Grenade, actually SummerSlam. But we talk about separated teams. Another team that we saw disband after WrestleMania 4, they're disbanding again after WrestleMania 5. Take two on the push for the Hitman Bret Hart. Vince McMahon once again separating the Anvil and the Hitman into solo acts. I guess they're going to attempt to see what Bret Hart's capable of doing another year into the business. Meanwhile, the Anvil is also going to be working. Now, last year when they separated, I don't know if Neidhart was having his, demons, his issues and things. Neidhart typically never, he was always on the house shows. You always got him on the house show videos and things like that, but almost never did he work television. It was like Neidhart wasn't even there anymore. However, Bret Hart was featured quite often on Superstars and Wrestling Challenge. This time around, we're going to see both guys featured as singles in the wrestling matches, but the Hitman, shockingly enough, gets paired with Mr. Perfect coming out of WrestleMania. We're going to see a lot of Hitman versus Mr. P matches here in the spring of '89.
Sign me up. Now, did Bret just not work after WrestleMania 4? Like, did it just not click for them, or?
It didn't
Why
click
did he
for
get
me.
put
I
back?
mean, I think watching as a fan, I can only speak as a fan. It just did. I mean, he worked Bad News essentially from April through frickin' July. So I mean, he only had one guy to work with, and that was Bad News Brown. And Bad News, while he didn't necessarily, I don't know that Brett ever actually went over on Bad News, but they did a lot of schmozzes and Bad News going over, of course, setting him up for matches with Savage and Hogan, etc. down the line. He's not going to job to Bret Hart, but. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting situation where Brett really, I just don't think he was ready personally. My personal opinion, I don't think that Brett was ready. Could he work? Sure, he could work, but I just don't know that he could handle it on his own. And he certainly, as proven in 87 and 88, Brett, I mean, not that he ever got the chops on the microphone, but Brett really was just, I don't know, just a little too bland, to be cutting those event center promos and things. And Neidhart was a ball of energy, and it only made sense to bring them back together by SummerSlam 88. And, they would stay together here till WrestleMania 5. But we're going to give the Hitman another try here throughout the course of the spring and summer of 89, see how he fares this time around as a solo.
Well, I know also, too, Bad News wasn't a fan of Brett anyway. So,
well, yeah. I mean, Bad News wasn't a fan of many guys. Bret Hart wasn't a fan of many guys. So you put them together, and that's what you're going to do.
You're going to have two miserable people who don't want to work with each other. And one of them's trying to get to the mid-card at least, Brett.
Yeah,
has a lot to prove in that, and Bad News is like, who gives a shit?
Well, I think Bad News felt he was promised a world title run supposedly, right? So at the end of the day, and congratulations to Mr. Brown on making it to the legacy wing anyway.
That's right.
Of the WWE Hall of Fame this year. But so Bret Hart,
at least he's in.
Yeah, no, he's in. So is Sid. I mean, I guess that's better than nothing. Certainly.
I think I like the idea. Both. I don't want to get too off track here, but I like the idea of putting the deceased into the legacy portion of it, because it's hard to trot out families and have them tell a story and do all that, and then people complain about how long the event is anyway.
Yeah.
You get them in there, give them their flowers, give them their videos, give them that Legends deal so the family can get money. They'll be remembered forever.
Well, the family certainly will appreciate the money, no doubt about that. So, I
need a Bad News figure. That's what I want.
It's going to be as long as it comes with a fucking possum, a sewer rat. Yeah, you need a sewer rat.
Yeah. I'll take a possum. That'd be awesome.
So we've seen Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart go solo before. We'll see that happen again here moving into the new year, the new season of the WWF. You can also add the Powers of Pain to the list of singles wrestlers. For the time being, the Warlord and Barbarian finishing up their feud with Demolition and the tag team titles. It wasn't meant to be. We'll see how they work as singles competitors. I have high hopes for the Barbarian, the Warlord. Not so much. Now, a lot of people remember later on, Warlord will be sold to Slick. He'll have that cool looking, whatever, half mask and etc. And Barbarian gets the fur and the antlers and all that cool stuff in 1990. People don't realize this was Vince's first try at breaking these guys up into solo acts. And we'll see them come back together later on here in 89 as well. But I'm curious to see what they do with them in the meantime. Now, I mentioned some of the tag matches to expect on the house shows here in the spring. Let's look at some of the singles, quote unquote, feuds that'll be starting up or continue as part of the live events. 2 new champions crowned at WrestleMania, Steve, and those feuds will continue into the house shows. The Ultimate Warrior will look to regain his Intercontinental title from Ravishing Rick Rude, and WWF champion now, once again, Hulk Hogan will continue to wrestle the Macho Man Randy Savage. After all the buy rate they did and all the, the sold out Trump Plaza, etc., all the money they made, about $19 million overall at WrestleMania, you would be a fool not to bring this to every single individual city you possibly could. Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man.
100% agree. 100% agree. And I would have paid to see it, even though if I paid for the pay-per-view,
yeah,
and then they came to my town, and you want the rematch, and then also too, like if they're coming to my town, hey mom, can I go? Yeah. I want to see Hogan and Macho. That match was awesome. Let me see it again.
Yeah, I told the story. My dad was a casual fan at best, and he in Tampa. When they came through somewhere down there in Florida, he went to the show just to see Hulk Hogan versus the Macho Man. I mean, just because that was the headline on the he probably didn't even know most of the roster, but he came for that. So that's just one person. Imagine how many people did that, depending on city to city. So this was a big time for the WWF. I'm sure. I'm looking forward to seeing what they draw at some of these house shows moving forward that feature that match. Now, for as good as the upper card is, Hogan and Savage on top, talk about making some money. My goodness, let's look at some of the other matches coming out of WrestleMania.
Can I get on that card? Can I be on that house, please?
Oh, you want on the
How many people lined up to Vince's office and said, can I be on that house show, please?
No
Can
kidding.
I be on the A-team?
Well, let's look at some of the other matches coming on right now in the world of the WWF. This is maybe the B and C towns aren't going to do so well because listen to this, guys. We're going to have Big John Studd taking on Andre the Giant. Hacksaw Jim Duggan coming after King Haku. The Battle of the Strongmen, the Mighty Hercules versus Dino Bravo. And as I mentioned, the Honky Tonk Man and Hillbilly Jim on these shows. So my goodness, I didn't realize we had so many slow lumbering people on the roster at the same time. And Vince's idea is, let's just put them against each other, pal. That'll really draw.
Out of all of this, Haku and Duggan is it for me. I like Hercules, especially in like '89. Like he wasn't too big to where he couldn't move. Right. So
Hercules is still trying to work. Right.
Yeah, he was still slim and trim and ready to go. But Dino is stiff as a board. That's not going to go well. And Honky and Hillbilly, poor Honky gets Hillbilly and then Snuka, which isn't bad. Snuka's awesome, but man, poor Honky. Don't ever say you're not doing the job, pal.
Yeah, I guess not. I'll put you in your place. So says
he's a worst enemy. It seems like he had that long run, and then it's like he felt like he should have that forever.
Yeah. Good things. All good things come to an end, Honk. And if that's not evident, just look at your opponent here in the spring of '89, Hillbilly Jim. But my goodness, Andre and John Studd. Oh man, this is just a rough patch here. And in some good news, you can add the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase versus Jake the Snake Roberts to the new feuds coming out of WrestleMania. However, there are plans to soon write Jake off of TV for a while. Now, the Observer at this time cites that it is due to legal issues involving assault charges with the Snaky Man. And I believe Jake will also undergo some type of neck surgery here, rehab during this period, of course, going all the way back to the guitar shot from the Honky Tonk Man prior to WrestleMania 3. Jake spending 2 years on and off the road trying to rehab that neck on his own. He's going to go into some sort of a surgery deal or a rehab deal here. I know we'll get into that when the time comes, but apparently assault charges, which I had not been privy to prior to this. So I'm curious to see what lies ahead in regards to that. Jake's, though, he's going to be written off here very shortly off of the television program, and he's going to be gone for about 4 months from mid-May through mid-September. No Jake the Snake Roberts.
What were do we have any information on the assault charge itself?
I have not found them yet.
Okay. I wanted to circle back real quick. Why did they break up the Powers of Pain and then not give them anything? It's not like I want to see Warlord in a house show feud with somebody, but I think the Barbarian could be a nice piece to like Hercules or something like that. Would have been decent.
And that's exactly where they go. I believe they're going to pivot to Hercules and the Barbarian eventually here on the house shows. Not any type of build up or anything like that, but that'll be one of them. And I think Warlord's going to be married to Coco. So sorry, Coco. But if somebody's going to make it look good, it could be, Coco, the smaller guy against the big Warlord. The question there is, why didn't they do anything with him? Why didn't they do anything with him when they break him up permanently in 1990? I'm not saying that I would have went this route.
I don't know either.
But the plan was supposedly initially was one of them was going to work the Warrior and one of them was going to work Hogan eventually, some point. And they got to the point where they're like, neither one of these guys are over to that level, so we're not doing that. And it never happened. And so Barbarian winds up doing nothing ever. Warlord eventually gets the Bulldog for, cup of coffee. But other than that, the Warlord has nothing else going on for him for the rest of his run here in the company as well. So I think right now it's just testing the waters. Let's see what we have. Let's get these guys established as solo acts.
Let's give a guy antlers and a fur coat and say, get over so you can wrestle the Warrior. I'm not knocking the antlers and the coat. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
But that's never going to get over to even get to the level that you need to get to even be in the ring with Ultimate Warrior.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what they do.
Or whoever he was going for. I don't know which one's going for which. But.
Well, here in '89, they're going to continue to be managed by Mr. Fuji. Both of them. They're going to continue to wear face paint. They're going to continue to both share the same gear. So it's going to...
That gear would have worked. They just stayed with that. I think they...
For one of them.
I think the Barbarian could have got over.
Yeah. That was more Barbarian's gear to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So before
give him the open reins and let him open up the offensive playbook in the ring and let him do some stuff, and he could have done some stuff. Honestly,
yeah, I
like Barbarian.
I was a huge Barbarian fan growing up. Absolutely. Well, so we talked about some of the teams. We talked about a lot of the matches upcoming here on the house shows. We also saw 2 returns at WrestleMania 5, including one Rowdy Roddy Piper. Now, don't get too excited. The Hot Rod is indeed back with the World Wrestling Federation, but only only going to work a handful of matches in the month of May, mostly just in their subbing for Jake the Snake Roberts in matches versus Ted DiBiase. And he's going to have at least a one-off with Randy Savage up in Montreal during the month of May. Now, for the most part, Piper going to work as a show host, a gig upcoming here on Primetime Wrestling throughout much of 1989. It won't be until after SummerSlam before Roddy Piper goes back on the road full-time. So we've got quite a while of Roddy Piper just kind of stepping in and filling in. We know he's going to be part of the Primetime story and etc. moving through the spring and summer. He's going to be feuding, if you will, with Rick Rude eventually. But right now, Roddy did come back at WrestleMania, but people don't realize he really didn't get back in the ring that we could see until, into the fall.
Yeah, very interesting. And I'm going to get some heat for this. But if you want to see how annoying Roddy Piper really is, just go watch Primetime 89 in order and binge watch it. And by about a month of Piper, you're tapped. You're done. Like, please get off my TV screen.
Give me back my Gorilla and Bobby. Yeah, I was.
Yes. Oh my God.
Not a fan of the Hot Rod becoming a member of the Primetime Wrestling set, but they needed to find something for him to do where he could just kind of sit there and bullshit and not necessarily be a color commentator, which he would be after the body gets.
Is that what he wanted to come back and do? Was just kind of
I'm sure he wanted limited. I'm sure he wanted to get paid and not have to get back in the ring. But eventually, they do persuade him into getting back. As we know, he'll be working with Rick Rude and Bad News Brown, and we'll see where he goes from there. But so we talked about Roddy Piper returning. There was another random return, and boy, was it random.
Yeah, that made no sense.
The Superfly brother, Jimmy Snuka, making his return to the WWF. Now, we know he worked a dark match at the recent TV tapings leading into the pay-per-view, but the Superfly is indeed back, and he'll be on the road with the company full-time beginning in the month of May. So Jimmy Snuka with that weird random return, announcement there in the middle of the pay-per-view, but not realizing that he had allegedly murdered someone. Jimmy Snuka, as me as a kid, I thought he was cool. I loved the Superfly splash, and you never got that at the house shows. You had to maintain those knees for as long as you could, get the crossbody or something like that. But on TV,
those toes.
You always got the Superfly splash, and I was a huge fan of Jimmy Snuka. And I'll tell the story when we get there between his feud with the Honky Tonk Man later down the road here. So I got a ways to go before I get to that story, but. Yeah, it's cool to see the Superfly back. It's another body. He's in great, tremendous shape as far as looks go. I mean, he certainly fits the bill here. And so it's another body. It's another familiar name to be part of the company here in '89.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, what happened with him.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's legit. He knew he was dying, so they didn't press charges, but...
I'm not speculating anything. I'm out of this story.
I'm not either, but it sounds like it was somebody got heated, maybe some roid rage. Who knows? Drunk, an idiot. Who knows? Shit happens. And I'm not dismissing it at all with just shit happens. It's unfortunate for everybody involved. But I thought he looked awesome when he came back. Like the color, like the gear. He had the robes on. Like before, he never really had that. I know he did somewhat, but those colorful robes and when he went to the black and white, like he just looked awesome. I thought he looked great when he came.
And
back.
that cool theme music.
Yeah, the theme music was awesome. And then what comes up. It's just cool to have Snuka back.
Yeah, he's going to have some.
In 1989, not now, but 1989.
They're few and far between here. He's getting up there in age, actually, too. And
that's the other crazy part.
The wear and tear. I don't know that any of his prime years are even on video. To be honest with you, from the '70s, very little of it. Just an amazing talent. A little bit of Portland, a little bit of Mid-Atlantic, stuff like that. But Jimmy could move like, you wouldn't believe long before anybody else was moving like that, at least here in the States. And so it's cool to have him back. I'm looking forward. I know he's going to have a cool match with the Macho King in Toronto that I remember very well from prime time as a kid. And just good times ahead, hopefully, here for the Superfly in the WWF. New gimmicks department, not a new talent, but a new gimmick. We heard the Mega Powers Explode poem from Leaping Lanny Poffo. Just prior to the pay-per-view, he recited this poem in both Madison Square Garden and Boston Garden. And the crowd reacted very similar in both markets because they were kind of booing Lanny anyway because he was Lanny Poffo. But they were listening and they were politely applauding as well and etc. And then he gets to the middle of the poem and there's dead silence. Not because people are disinterested, but because there's... What did he just say? That poem turned Lanny Poffo heel before the Boston and the New York City markets. by the end, I think it was the Boston one specifically, but by the end of both, he was getting booed heavily. But the one with Hogan chants, very loud boos. I mean, did you ever see anybody turn heel by reciting a poem? That's that is someone who is talented beyond our realization. I didn't know Lanny had it in him.
No, I didn't either. And it's just amazing that his words got him turned. I know he wanted to, and that was the idea, but at the end of the day, he was able to put something in a poem that got him enough heat to turn him without doing anything else.
He didn't screw anybody over. He didn't cheat to win a match. He simply came out there and said, Hulk Hogan is the bad guy and Randy Savage is number one, and whatever he went on to say. Now we know.
Wouldn't it have been cool though, like if everybody knew like that was his brother? Well, like how much more heat would he have gotten, or less? Maybe they think, he's just sticking up for his brother.
Right. I don't know that Randy would have minded that too much, but I think Vince never wanted that to come out, right? So I think that was the big thing. Like, we don't want you there. Now, Lanny's told the story that, and this is very true. This part's very true. There was a chopping block. There was a lot of guys cut going into WrestleMania, at least I'd say about 10 guys pretty much. I mean, it was all underneath guys, but Lanny was an underneath guy. He was an enhancement guy that worked the house shows. So he would have easily, believably been on this chopping block. And so Randy Savage, he had some pull, he had some power. He got Lanny hired in 1985. But by 1989, I don't know what kind of, Randy's no longer got the belt either, right? So it's like Randy's got to worry about Randy. And I'm not saying he didn't love his brother, and I'm not saying he didn't try to take care of his brother, but it sounds to me, if Lanny's saying it, I don't know why, he would make this statement that he was on this chopping block, and had the genius gimmick not come about, I don't remember if he said he's the one that came up with it or whoever put their input in with this, but grew the beard, grew the hair out, and the genius gimmick was born. I guess you could call this ingenious because it keeps Lanny on the roster, gives him a job for the next several years. He's going to stick with the company because he gets the heel turn, and he becomes, as we know, we're going to see on the next episode of The Grenade, vignette number 1 of The Genius. So we know Lanny Poffo is now becoming the genius, and just another piece of the puzzle falling into place from my childhood.
Yeah, so I don't remember Lanny being on the house shows a whole lot in, 88, 89? Was he even on them? I know he wasn't doing much jobs on TV as a jobber.
Yeah, they definitely taken him off. I think he had jobbed everybody on the roster 17 times on TV, so they had he was working the undercard on a lot of the house shows, yeah.
Okay, I just don't remember seeing much of him, so he was kind of already gone.
Right. They had essentially written him off television. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's like I could see why he'd be on the chop block just by default. We can't have you out here jobbing to everybody 100 times.
I don't care who you're related
we just need new job. We just need new jobbers.
Yeah. Beefcake kept the job.
Good on him.
But I mean that was a different story and a different friend, brother.
Do you think Bruce came up with the genius? I know Lanny probably came
Bruce
up with it.
Bruce didn't come up with shit. Not here in 1980. Bruce ain't coming up with shit outside of Brother Love. No.
It seems like a Bruce gimmick. The genius.
I think this was. Well, you have to understand, his father goes back to being the student. The back in the day, they wore the cap and gown, Angelo Poffo. So he graduated, the graduates, I believe.
Okay.
I'm doing so much research, man. Everybody just fucking jumbles together in my head sometimes. That was part of it. And of course, Lanny was a very intelligent guy. Not only did he write poetry, but he did know some other language. I don't know about 11 languages, but he certainly spoke multiple languages, and certainly Italian or their heritage and whatnot. So it was fitting, and he
was
came
perfect.
He came off condescending sometimes, even when he didn't mean to. So I thought maybe not so much as Jacques Rougeau, but pretty much, but it is what it is.
And also his delivery too, like his tone and his voice.
Yeah,
it's just so perfect as the genius in the poetry.
Yeah,
just an excellent promo.
Yeah, so I don't know how many more Frisbees will be thrown, but I do know that Genius will be on our TV before too long, and so I have that to look forward to. So we talked about new gimmick for Lanny Poffo. Let's talk about new job department. It appears that Dangerous Danny Davis will be turning in his wrestling license to once again become a licensed official here in the World Wrestling Federation under strict supervision and probation. So Danny, another guy who never got over, he was over as hell upon the turn. That 6-man tag at WrestleMania 3, you want to talk about heel heat, but they don't follow it up. And, and some of that's Danny's fault because he never really gets it in the ring. I don't know what happens there. Danny Davis just had 2 left feet. He could work, but he had no idea what to do, I think is the problem with Danny in there. No matter how many years he had spent as Mr. X, and then, eventually all the matches he has here is Danny Davis, and he's relegated to a job guy by the turn of the year, 88 and 89. Jimmy Hart's no longer with Danny. We see Danny teaming with other job guys on syndicated TV and losing, basically in squash matches. And so, no doubt, had Danny not been an official, he would have also been on that chopping block. But luckily, it was simple as, well, we could just put Danny Davis back as a referee. We could just explain it in passing in the upcoming commentary, and they don't even make a big stink about it. It's just he's under probation, and Danny Davis is back as a referee.
That's probably where he belongs. I think the 2 left feet is a really good explanation of Danny Davis. He just seems very stiff and clumsy in the ring.
Clunky, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. It's just like it never caught on with Danny, and they did try in 87 to give him a few guys. They tried to do something with Mr. T, and then Mr. T was out as quick as he was in. They had him try to steal Damien, and that was like literally Jake gets suspended for drugs like for 30 days right after that, so they just dropped that as well. Not that it would have been much of a match, and they still do those matches on the house shows, but no feud between Jake and Davis. So they tried, and then they just said, you know what, this is not working out. So Danny Davis lingered around for a couple years as a wrestler. He's going to be returning as a manager, as we know, through the fall of 1995. And I always enjoyed Danny Davis, the official. He was very good at that job. Not to spoil too much, but you can also expect rugged Ronnie Garvin to undergo a job title change here within the company. Strictly storyline driven, but very peculiar. Ronnie Garvin arrives by basically the end of 1988, and 4 months in, he's no longer a wrestler. It's just, I don't know. I don't think they knew what to do with Ronnie Garvin.
I don't think they did either. I was going to ask you, like, is there any reason for this, or like, is it something that Ronnie Garvin maybe wanted? No.
Ronnie's told the story that he came there for a job, but he made it very clear, I'm not doing any of these stupid fucking gimmicks. I'm not going to be a gimmick. You want me to come in and lose, I'll lose, but I'm not going to be a fucking gimmick. And that's pretty much what happens. He comes in and loses more often than he wins. But I was a fan of rugged Ronnie Garvin. Now, he was one of the first guys I saw in Georgia Championship Wrestling. Of course, he was the number 3 underneath Dusty and Magnum and Crockett for a period of time there in 86. And, Magnum goes away and Garvin eventually becomes a world champion. He doesn't like having to do jobs to Dusty. He wasn't a fan of Dusty, which is interesting because we're going to see Dusty here before. Dusty had a lot of enemies when he walked into the New York locker rooms, as one of the boys, if you will. But so Garvin leaves the NWA after the heel turn at the Bash shortly after, and he works for Vern for about a month, and I'm sure he wasn't getting paid very well, although I think he won the TV title and just leaves that market. And he pops up here in the WWF right around Survivor Series on the house shows. And here he is, and there's not a whole lot for him. And of course, I think his height really hurt him here in the WWF because Garvin could really go in the ring. We saw it at WrestleMania. For working Dino Bravo, it was the damnedest 4 minutes somebody ever tried to make somebody else look good anyway. So I was a rugged Ronnie Garvin guy. I just always loved him. I loved his jumping headbutt gimmick, and looking forward to seeing what Ronnie does. Maybe not so much this storyline that's going to go on for far too fucking long, but it's going to be what it is, and we'll see what happens there. Now, I don't know if being king is an actual job title, but I do have it under good authority. We may be crowning a new royal leader very soon here in the WWF. It's going to take one tough guy to get the crown off of King Haku. And speaking of Haku, we'll talk a little bit more about him in another fun story I shared with you offline. We'll talk about it now, actually. This will fit it all together here. Speaking of Haku, he pled innocent on February 15th to an altercation that took place back in the month of February at 2:20 a.m. That's closing time at the bars for those of you who don't drink. Haku at the Runway Bar near Rochester Airport, where the king, Haku, accused of ordering a woman and other patrons to bow before the king. And apparently 2 of the guys took exception there at the bar and trying to defend the lady's honor and maybe trying to look cool themselves, maybe trying to score. Who knows what the story is, but a couple of the guys get mouthy with Haku, and it ends only in wrestling and only with Haku is this believable. Like, if anybody else did this, it would just be silly. Haku gives the guys a double noggin knocker, and I mean, just lays the waist to these guys. Man, anybody else, like I said, I'd say, why the fuck? What kind of mark-ass shit? Haku taking 2 guys and ramming their heads together, that's believable.
Yeah, absolutely. So is he, like, legit, like, bow to the king, or was this, like, promiscuous in some way?
I'm sure it was a little bit of both. I wasn't there. I don't know, but I'm sure there was some implication there. But also, I can picture a half drunk Haku going, "You bow before the king." I mean, you do what Haku tells you. You do what the king tells you, and then none of this would have happened. But see what happens when keeping it real goes wrong, guys. Those guys are still walking around here in 2026 with like half their head caved in or something, I'm sure. My goodness.
I would tell that story forever.
So many great stories.
I tried to stop Haku, and he ran my head into my friend. Like I'd be telling everybody.
I found out. Ooh, the sensational Sherry, another wrestling talent, will be stepping out of the women's wrestling division to join the managerial ranks, effective immediately after the pay-per-view. I suppose you would say she's replacing Frenchie Martin's spot in the manager's camp here. Think about that for a minute. Talk about an upgrade, Steve.
Absolutely.
Who will Sherry manage? Find out next week right here on The Grenade. If you don't already know, we'll be covering it at length on the next episode of TV here in April of '89. Speaking of Frenchie Martin, with Martin now out of the picture, Dino Bravo will need to find himself a new manager, baby. And that'll make 3 managers in less than 3 years for Dino Bravo. I wrote in my notes here, maybe it's not the manager.
Well, it's definitely not the managers.
Well, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's a little bit of both, right? Johnny V, Frenchie Martin, they weren't giving Dino the best managers to begin with.
No, that's not a lot to work with.
Keep him in his... Well, we're going to see if Jimmy Hart can turn things around for the Canadian strongman here, moving into the spring of '89. Lots of things ahead. Big Saturday night's main event coming up in the month of May, featuring WWF champion Hulk Hogan defending his title against the Big Boss Man inside a steel cage. My goodness, what a big matchup for NBC.
Oh, it's one of the best cage matches ever. I love that match. I love that whole show. That show's so good.
You know, I can't remember Tony Schiavone if he said it was his favorite thing to call in the WWF or just in general. Probably just the WWF, but he said his favorite match and favorite event he ever called was Madison Square Garden, Hogan and the Boss Man inside the cage, because it was, well, he had known Big Bubba, but I mean, it didn't get any bigger. Literally, I mean, you got the world champion Hulk Hogan in here now coming for the Big Boss Man on NBC. Everybody's going to get to see it, and it's all going to go down here, right here on The Grenade, right here on the Patreon and the Videocast world, part of the ultimate tier, no doubt part of the big ones that'll be here. So stay tuned for that. Also, stay tuned for a Videocast, unfortunately, at some point, I'm sure. June 2nd will mark the official theater release date of the epic, long-awaited return of the Hulkster to the big screen. Not since Rocky, what was that, 3? Rocky 3. The Hulkster going to return to the movie theaters as part of No Holds Barred, which will feature Hogan in a prominent leading role as Rip 'em Brother, and he will be taking on actor Tiny Lister, a.k.a. Zeus.
My God. The promotion for this movie is out of this world.
Do you not feel
on WWF TV anyway?
Yeah, I get to look forward to that for the next couple months. And when I watch the trailer, it feels like a parody of a movie trailer. It doesn't even feel like it's a real movie. It's just so hokey and over the top. And they've told the story of Hogan and Vince locking themselves in a hotel room and writing this in one night, or whatever the story was, whatever they were doing that night, brother. My goodness. So it looks like somebody wrote this shit in one night, I'll tell you that. But unfortunately, we cover everything here on The Grenade. So yes, when the time comes, we will in some way, shape, or form discuss No Holds Barred. Until then, the less, the better. So we'll keep it right there, guys. Sometimes we save the best for last. Sometimes. Not so much this time. But you can expect Brutus the Barber Beefcake to receive a major push coming out of WrestleMania. The Barber expected to be tied in with the Macho Man at the house shows. Not only is Savage going to be working Hogan, Beefcake going to have some matches with the Macho Man as well. And of course, we know Beefer even going to be main eventing as part of SummerSlam. So obviously, coming out of WrestleMania, big plans for the Barber.
Unfortunate.
Well,
I guess it pays to have boys like...
I was going to say, yeah. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And so Brutus Beefcake, he came in '84. 5 years it took him to get to this period. It wasn't like he was shoved straight to the moon immediately. It was a lot of years of... I want to call it grinding, but of course he did have a fun little team there with Greg the Hammer Valentine, at least for a while. But the Barber has found his own way in life, and now he's here, and he's going to be main eventing to some degree here throughout the year of 1989. Stay tuned for that. Now,
I'll say one thing good about Brutus. Yeah. He seemed to be always over with the crowd. When he started the Barber gimmick and the music and all that, and he turned face, he was pretty over with the crowd. You can't dispute that. In ring, terrible, but he was over.
So we got a couple legal situations to look at here as we wrap up the news portion of the program, Steve. And I talked a little bit about it already, the Haku situation at the bar. The bow to the king story, if you will. Haku scheduled to be arraigned at this point. I got some more notes here, so I wanted to read them. The charges stem from an early morning incident, February 15th, at the Runway Bar in Rochester. Bar manager Robert Moore said Haku was having drinks with a woman when the two began to argue. Two male customers stepped forward to intervene on the woman's behalf. Haku elbowed a man in the face, then grabbed both and knocked their heads together. Haku faces a $1,000 fine and 1 year in jail. Now, I don't know how many times I've read these stories about Haku facing time in jail, and it just goes away. Somebody's footing the bill here. But $1,000 fine? I mean, at the end of the day, my goodness, you can get a speeding ticket for $1,000 in this stuff. But you put it in perspective, that's probably close to $4,000 today, $3,000 or $4,000. And that's still not a whole lot for a Haku doing some damage to somebody anyway.
No, definitely not. So it sounds like Haku wanted a little bit more out of the conversation with the lady.
What do you mean you know about to Haku?
Yeah.
I think reading between the lines here, Haku is asking her to bow and kneel, if you get my drift, guys. So real quick, this is old news, actually. This was going into WrestleMania 4, but it's finally resolved here. This is what got David Sammartino fired the final time with the company. He had to make a public videotaped apology to wrestling fan Martin Gallagher here in 1989. The people of Watertown, New York. Apparently, Mr. Gallagher was not only a patron of a wrestling event leading into WrestleMania 4 in Watertown area, but he's also a member of the Disabled Persons Action Organization. Oh my gosh, now the story gets 10 times worse than it was when David hauled off and hit the... Now, Steve, you weren't here for this. David Sammartino was brought back for some house shows and things. Bruno was still there at the time, and I guess they were going to give David another try. He'd gotten on the pharmaceuticals, the medicine bubba, if you will, and he looked the part, but he never really got any real shots on TV outside of some house show matches we got to see. But apparently, when David had enough one night and he had it out with a fan, physically assaulted a fan near ringside. Now, not until here in '89 do I see that the Disabled Persons Action Organization get involved, which leads me to believe that David Sammartino struck a disabled person, which is a whole new level of just whatever. So it did get David fired, and right around that time is when Bruno also quit the company. I don't think one had anything to do with the other, unless the firing came after Bruno quit. I can't recall, but David no longer with the company, as we know, and he won't be back. The apology was part of a plea bargain, though, that David Sammartino has had warrant out for his arrest in New York State. So there was a warrant out, and he had to apologize. The judge assigned was expected to give Sammartino a 6-month adjournment in contemplation of dismissal of all charges. So basically what that means is if David can stay clean for 6 months, this all goes away. Papa Bruno must be proud.
Sounds like it. What a bum.
Yeah, well, keeping your nose clean for 6 months, we know David must do that. I don't believe he spends any jail time. We do know that eventually he and his father will have a falling out and they will not speak for the remainder of Bruno's time here on Earth, which is, unfortunate. I don't know the situation. I don't know who was wronged or if anybody was in the wrong, but it's always a bad situation when you hear things like that, guys. But we're going to move on an hour into the program and an hour of news, Steve. I hope you had an enjoyable time looking at some of the things coming out of WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah. It's been great. A lot of great news and a lot of changes, obviously. A lot of turnover. WrestleMania is a reset. A
lot of TV programs have the new fall season. In the WWF, they considered post-WrestleMania the spring their new season. So this is when they shake things up. It happened all the way back here in the late 80s, guys. So it didn't just start with Raw or the later years, as a lot of people like to believe. No, it started way back here, just giving some guys some new gimmicks and some new storylines and some spring cleaning, as we know. A lot of guys on the outs, on the underneath. So, at this point in the show, we're going to roll on ahead. But before we do, we're going to take this quick WrestleCopia timeout.
Relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at USWApodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell back to talk to you about all the new and exciting audio and video podcasts we've been putting together over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. As a self-funded brand, this entire ship is powered by our patrons. It's your support that keeps all of these wonderful shows going here at WrestleCopia. And with that said, I wanted to mention that we now have 3 major tiers with tons of Patreon-exclusive next-level content for our Patreon supporters. And it all starts with the $5 all-access tier, which gets you early access to many of the weekly podcasts, at least a dozen monthly digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure, the insanely detailed show notes for the Wrestling Memory Grenade Regional Wrestling, and the OG Monday Warfare podcast, plus random bonus video drops, archived old-school audio watch-alongs from the early years of the brand. And if that's not all, the brand new Patreon-exclusive podcast, Ranting Raw, featuring yours truly, Ray Russell, completely uncensored, unfiltered, with honest takes, taking patron questions and addressing various topics from throughout wrestling history. It is a whole lot of fun wrapped under the all-access tier for only $5, but things get even hotter with the VIP Superfan tier. For just a few dollars more, you get everything already mentioned in the all-access tier, plus as part of the VIP tier, a whole new slew of videocast series where it's not just your typical watch-alongs. Sure, we laugh, we have fun, but we're also breaking down the history, the context, and the why behind what you're seeing. And as part of the VIP tier, you have access to Dan Gennety's Puro Resu Academy videocast, the Coliseum videocast with co-host Gene Jackson, and the Monday Warfare videocast, Raw vs. Nitro, breaking down the history of the Monday Night War. Plus, you also get the Memphis 1985 folder of goodies and all show notes for the Puro Academy podcast and Gene's retro review show. Lots to be had there at the VIP tier. But wait, there's more. For those WrestleCopia backers who crave even more from the brand, we bring you yet another level of content fit for a warrior, because it is indeed the ultimate tier, which gives you everything from the all-access pass, everything from the VIP tier, plus you will receive access to the big ones video series featuring a lengthy look and discussion into some of the biggest pay-per-views, super shows, and other events from throughout wrestling history. It's also a great place to keep up with the big events that coincide with the Monday Warfare videocast and so many other big events from years gone by. You'll also have access to the newest big hit to the Copia brand. I'm talking about Regional Wrestling Unreal, the video series. Get ready for the next level in regional wrestling as we dissect territory history in video form. Watch along with us. But still, even more for your money, guys. You'll also receive access to the Treasure Chest, which offers patrons the unique opportunity to download and watch select rarities from wrestling history. And for those of you who are wondering what we offer, are contemplating joining a paid Patreon membership, or simply a curious lurker, a reminder there's a free tier at our Patreon that you can join as well. Remember, guys, no subscription, cancel any time, but I think you'll like the content that we're offering there for any budget you may have. And you can sign up right now, patreon.com/WrestleCopia, or look for the QR code where available. We appreciate your support in helping us pay the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network running and enabling us to continue to bring you all the quality programming that we offer.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
All right, guys, welcome back to the results portion of this week's episode, Grenade number 191, talking April 1989 news. And now we're going to talk the results. And before we do, be sure to stop on over to the historyofwwe.com. Great site created by Graham Cawthon, kept up by Richard Land. Click that 1989 result link and scroll along with me as we look at results from April 1989 in the World Wrestling Federation. Got to update some of my notes here, it looks like. So we're going to move ahead now. Leading into WrestleMania, usually the guys get 5 to 7 days off heading into the pay-per-view. Make sure everybody's there on time, everybody's ready, doing the local promoting and getting their matches prepared and all the good things that happen in between. Make sure everybody arrives and there's no transportation issues. But also coming out, the boys do typically get at least a couple weeks of time off from wrestling. This is their big break. This is their summer vacation if you were in school or something along those lines. So I'm sure they're getting into trouble somewhere right now. That's what I think is it's like when NFL season's over, all of these things, everybody goes,
all their rest.
Yes. Guys don't know what to do with themselves and all their money. So we're going to see something very similar here. Not in the arrest department. We already talked about Haku. That's pretty much the beginning and the end of what we know happened during this time frame. But no, April 2nd was WrestleMania 5. We covered that extensively over the last couple episodes of the Grenade Show. Now, outside of a tour of Italy, not necessarily Europe, just the country of Italy, the WWF here at the beginning of 1989 going to send a handful of guys over there for that. And they're actually going to do a TV taping coming out of the pay-per-view as well. But overall, the guys are going to get pretty much 3 weeks off, which may be the longest I've ever seen. 20 days off for the majority of the roster, that's the longest I've ever seen. That's a long period of time to have off.
Wow. That's crazy.
It is. Now, they do something different here that they don't typically do after the pay-per-view. They have TV tapings immediately after WrestleMania. Usually the guys are just off. The tapings have already been covered for most of the month of April prior to. In this instance, we're actually going to get a couple of tapings just a couple days after WrestleMania there in Atlantic City. We're going to move ahead to Glens Falls, New York, Tough Guy, on April the 4th, Superstars taping. Now, we'll cover Superstars as we go along with the TV, but we'll look at some of the other matches that happened as part of that taping, including a pair of matches that air on the April 10th episode of Primetime Wrestling. Tito Santana defeating Iron Mike Sharp. Rick Martel briefly appearing ringside. So it looks like not only did Martel turn on Tito, it looks like we're going to get some kind of a feud here leading into the spring and summer months. Also, the Brooklyn Brawler, still managed by Bobby Heenan, kind of wondering when that ends. Brawler scoring a win over Terry Daniels, formerly Private Terry Daniels there. So Brawler with Heenan coming out of the pay-per-view still, and Tito Santana back to solo work, and it looks like the feud will go on with Rick Martel.
Let's go. That's good stuff.
I thought maybe Bobby was done with the Brawler after WrestleMania, but that doesn't appear to be so here. Curious to see when Bobby just kind of disappears from that whole Brooklyn Brawler situation, but I guess Brawler will continue to work Terry Taylor after WrestleMania, so maybe that's the reason why they're keeping Bobby on for now.
Yeah, that's probably it. I do know, I'm watching Superstars, and I'm in July, and I still see Event Center promos with Bobby and Brawler together. So
good deal.
It's not as instant as it seems.
No, I guess not. I mean, I'd always been curious. I didn't really go back and watch this week to week until this time period. So I'm excited to see what lies ahead for Bobby Heenan, not so much the Brooklyn Brawler, but Brain still has an Intercontinental Champion. And first, I can't believe, man, here we are, 1989, his very first wrestler finally wins gold. And
that is crazy.
5 years. I guess, they say if you're over, you don't need a belt. And I guess as a manager, when you're Bobby Heenan, you don't really need a belt to be looked at as the credible top manager of the company. But he has one now, and he'll have more before the end of the year. So keep an eye out for that. Now, Mega Man is the gimmick we're getting here for 1989 Tom McGee. McGee's been brought back repeatedly for the last several years. He's been here pretty much since the beginning of the Grenade, honestly, with the 87 story in the WWF. Tom McGee has been given tryout after tryout. He's been sent to Calgary to go learn. They've done everything they can with this Mega Man Tom McGee character. They've pretty much tried to utilize him as a babyface up to this point. He's working heel here on these TV tapings because it's a last-ditch effort by Vince. Now, the Hitman match that everybody had talked about, one of the lost footage, everybody wanted to see Bret Hart versus Tom McGee. It made the rounds. There's a Tom McGee Arn Anderson match out there that was a dark match from this time period that made the rounds. But in general, Tom McGee was thought to be the replacement eventually, hopefully, hopeful by Vince that he was going to replace Hulk Hogan someday. He knew Hogan wasn't going to last forever, and that was going to be his initial replacement. He had the body of the war. Make no mistake about that. He was also very nimble, very athletic, flips off the top rope. He has some sort of martial arts background. The guy could do a little bit of everything. What he couldn't do was work a wrestling match, apparently. Vince was, supposedly the story goes, he had the match with the Hitman, and they thought they saw gold, but it was Bret that brought the best out of him, whatever the story was there, and they just never got it with Tom McGee. And this is his last run here. He's going to get a few shots here in 1989 And I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to watch any of the few Tom McGee matches that are out there, but it didn't hurt my feelings to watch him wrestle, right? Like, but he just didn't have it. He was never going to be the Ultimate Warrior. He was never going to be Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, he just seemed like a big guy, like muscled up and curly hair, and the matches just didn't work. He's trying too hard. I think that's the other part of it is when you're trying too hard, it comes across. Like if it's that natural or easy to you, you try too hard, and that exposes you real quick. The curious thing for me is using Mega Man. Did they get a cease and desist from Nintendo? Cut that shit out.
I don't know. I don't know that it made it that far, right? Because he never made it past these tryout matches. But no, I was thinking that anytime I ever see any of these names that are clearly, Vince didn't know what a Mega. You think Vince was sitting there playing, Nintendo, pal, I love Mega Man. No, I don't know who gave him the name, but obviously Vince probably had no idea there was a video game of Mega Man, much less multiple video games of Mega Man, which was a great game, by the way, guys. Go try to check that out if you can. So Mega Man Tom McGee on this TV taping, managed by Jimmy Hart. So working a heel here, scoring a win over Bill Spector. Bad News Brown pinning Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Going to give Bad News a bone after his recent losses, like to Hulk Hogan on Saturday night's main event. Going to be his brother. Big John Studd, egads, it begins. Defeating Akeem by disqualification, Bobby Heenan interfering as Studd began to attempt to slam Andre the Giant. Guess what? Wasn't going to happen, John. But Bobby Heenan wasn't going to let it happen. Now, that match is part of that unreleased series. We're covering that on the big ones. We've been covering some of those matches as part of the big ones in the WWE unreleased 1986 to 1995 video releases. You guys can go check that out as we discuss that there on an upcoming episode. But John Studd and Andre the Giant, so it begins again.
Brutal.
I was never a fan of it in first run. Right. But I mean, I don't know.
Right.
We just talked about John Studd being threatened to be fired if he doesn't make a slam on Akeem look believable. And now they think sticking him in there with Andre the Giant is going to, sell tickets. Vince is, I don't know if he's living in the past or what the situation is. Neither guy very mobile to begin with. And Andre may be slightly more mobile than John Studd, it feels like, here in 19, which is scary, So
yeah.
I don't know what we're doing. But it won't last long, hopefully, anyway. Also on the TV taping dark match, Randy Savage, the former champion, but now managed by Sensational Sherry out here, believe it, defeating the Ultimate Warrior, also former Intercontinental Champion. Savage over Warrior by countout. Rick Rude coming ringside, distracting Warrior. Warrior going to chase the Macho Man backstage, come back and clear the ring. So leave the fans happy there. But we were seeing those matches going into WrestleMania, but both guys had the belts. Now, neither guy with a belt, but they're still doing the same finish. Rick Rude running in, and the close out the night with Hulk Hogan over the Big Boss Man in a steel cage. My goodness. People don't realize TV tapings were 4 hours of television, squashes, plus you get the house show matches mingled, intermingled in there, and the dark match, the tryout matches. So you had it was like a long night of wrestling.
Yeah. And you finished with, no matter how terrible it was, you still had Andre and Big John Studd, Warrior Savage, Hogan and Boss Man in a cage to send you home. I'd be happy as a kid.
I'd be happier if there was no Andre John Studd match, but I'm totally.
I mean, that's like a 2026 type of look at it. Like, okay, cool. I get to see Andre and Studd in the ring. It's not good. It's terrible, but it's still Andre, right?
I was sad because we never got TV tapings here at the Richfield Coliseum. We always got the pay-per-views and things. And I know what a thing to complain about, but I always wanted the TV taping. And I guess the Richfield was just too big for TV tapings, so we never got that. So I never got to live an actual old school WWF TV taping. Got a lot of Raws at the Gun Arena, the Q, etc., but didn't get a lot of the old Superstars Wrestling Channel. Didn't get any of those, and so I always wanted, as a kid, I always wanted those. But I've always heard they were very monotonous. I can imagine 20 some odd squash matches, to get to the good stuff. That's a long night.
It'd be worth it though to get to it'd be worth it to get to the good stuff though. Well, I was in Indiana. Like I said, I wish I grew up. I wish I was like 10 years older when the peak happened. Like if I wish I was born in the 70s, that way I could have my own money and do what I wanted to do.
Sure.
I would have went to all these because we have Fort Wayne and we have Market Square Arena, and they came here a lot for TV tapings. So, and we had big shows. Like I think the main event one, which was the February '88 match, like the highest rated show ever, was at Market Square Arena. Yeah. So.
They like the acoustics. They like the visuals of that building. They use that quite often. Absolutely.
Yeah.
April 5th, we're going to do the Wrestling Challenge taping at the Onondaga War Memorial, Syracuse, New York. On the dark matches, Jimmy Snuka, there he is, defeating George South, the big Superfly Splash. Also on the dark matches, more Big John Studd and Andre, more Randy Savage and Warrior. Brutus Beefcake taking on Mr. Perfect. We'll see them come to a head here in 1990. And again, steel cage action, Hulk Hogan and the Big Boss Man. Also a couple of matches taped for April 10th and April 17th, Primetime Wrestling, respectively. The Barbarian, here it is, solo act. The Barbarian managed by Mr. Fuji defeating Chuck Williams. Big flying clothesline off the top rope. And I can't wait for April 17th, primetime. There it is, Hillbilly Jim back in the WWF circles, defeating Boris Zukov, who is now relegated to being a 100% job guy.
That giant cranium.
Yes, Hillbilly Jim and Boris Zukov. Boy, man, don't really know what to say about that.
The only good thing is it only went 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes and 1 second. That was about 5 minutes too long.
I bet you it felt like about 25 minutes if that was the last match they recorded.
We do get a little do-si-do between Hillbilly Jim and ring announcer Mike McGurk, so at least you got that out of the whole fucking ordeal there. Nikolai Volkov going to be gone from the company for a while now. The Bolsheviks no more. Nikolai will return near the end of 1989, and we will see the resurrection of the Bolsheviks. Can't wait for that. But for right now, we're going to see Boris out there more often than not doing the jobs as the WWF moves on. Going to send a troop of talent out to Italy. I guess they're going to give a try to the country of Italy, see if they're worthy of running an entire loop out here. April 7th, going to kick things off. Ladies action, Rockin' Robin, the women's champion. She needs to get back in the ring as a wrestler, not a singer. Rockin' Robin against Judy Martin. Demolition, look at this matchup. Demolition, tag team champions versus Andre the Giant and King Haku, the future Colossal Connection. It happened here first in Italy, of all places. And Andre usually was a guy they would send on any of their European tours. I'm sure Andre enjoyed going back to his native Europe, but also I think they needed that attraction, right? Everybody knew Andre from one side of the globe to the other.
Oh, yeah. Andre was the man.
Well, I don't know so much here in 1989, but I mean, if you've never had wrestling in your neck of the woods and Andre the Giant's coming, the spectacle that was Andre the Giant, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's got to sell. Warlord begins his house show matches with Coco Beware. It's the Barbarian and the Blue Blazer going at it here. Listen to this, Mr. Perfect and Rick Martel. And a lot of people are going, wait a minute, Rick Martel just turned heel, but actually on this Italy tour, I don't know if they hadn't gotten WrestleMania 5 yet or whatever the story was, Martel's working as a babyface here on this tour.
That's interesting.
That's a hell of a match, too. Here's even more interesting. I had not noticed this till now. Intercontinental Champion Rick Rude defending his title against Bret the Hitman Hart. Wow, the Hitman and Rick Rude. I don't know that I've ever seen that encounter.
No, is that on TV? Is this recorded somewhere?
Not that I'm aware of. This is in Turin, Italy, I should have mentioned here, April the 7th.
This one is, look at this card compared to what we're about to look at.
Yeah, I know.
Why?
The one that's televised versus the one that's not. The top three matches here in Turin, Italy, April the 7th. Warrior and the Boss Man headlining, which is like my dream. I'm not saying it would have been good, but it was my dream match as a kid. My favorite baby and my favorite heel. So I would have definitely been clamoring for that. Rude and the Hitman and Mr. Perfect and Rick Martel. You couldn't get a better top of the card. Unfortunately, we fast
even
forward.
Barbarian and Blue Blazer would have been good.
That would have been good. Absolutely. Yeah. Owen and the Barbarian, 100% on the undercard. Well, we're going to move on to April 8th, Milan, Italy. This is indeed televised on Italia 1. Dan Peterson on commentary here. Mr. Perfect defeating the Blue Blazer. We saw it at WrestleMania. They gave him like 5 minutes. Here they give him nearly 16 minutes for the Blazer to land a crossbody. Of course, Hennig going to use the momentum to land on top and score the victory there. So I'd said, man, I'd like to see what these two could have done in long form. And I went back and watched just this match from the house show before we covered it here. And I wasn't just really upset with it. It wasn't anything special, I hate to say, but it was good for what it was. And I'm happy that these guys got some time to work with each other in the ring.
15 minutes compared to WrestleMania 5. Bet you it was a lot better.
It was entertaining. Andre the Giant battling Bret the Hitman Hart. Andre dominating essentially the entire matchup, dropping the big elbow to score the win over the Hitman. Now, Bret has told the story, and it's the Hitman, so take it the way you want. But he's told the story that he didn't understand why he was working Andre that night. He had never worked Andre before one-on-one, so he went to somebody that was in charge of the overseas tour. He asked, "Why am I working?" Not complaining, just why am I working Andre? They said that Andre had asked to wrestle Bret Hart. He liked Bret. He wanted to do something different, and Andre was the one that requested the match with the Hitman. That's Brett's version of the story anyway. And the way he tells it, he's not really putting himself over necessarily. So I think Andre wanted to try something different.
It makes sense. I mean, that's not like Brett tooting his own horn the way if he's just curious.
Well,
but
if you're Brett, it's nothing to brag about. It's 8-minute match, and Andre basically dominates 7 minutes and 45 seconds of it essentially, and then pins Brett. So I mean, it's Andre. It's like a cat and mouse. It's like you're toying with the mouse, really. But I mean, I'm sure Brett got paid handsomely, to work the Giant here on the tour.
I'm sure Brett is happy that he got the opportunity. Obviously, you get a chance to work Andre or tell people you worked Andre. That's pretty cool. No matter what year it was.
As fun as the last house show sounded with the matches, this is where it falls apart here on this house show here that was actually televised.
Yeah.
King Haku over Rick Martel, the Big Boss Man beating Coco Beware. We've seen that before multiple times. Warrior defeating IC champion Rick Rude on a disqualification when the Big Boss Man interfered and pulled the referee out. Wait a minute. The Boss Man and the Warrior are feuding? No. The Boss Man's part of the Heenan family? No. Just because he's a heel and he's on this tour, we have the Boss Man running out here to help Rick Rude retain the title. It makes no sense logically, but I mean, it's a foreign tour, pal. We can do whatever we want.
Nobody's seeing this shit. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, though, the night before they did wrestle, so maybe there was some animosity from that he came out and screwed him out of his title.
If you went from Turin to Milan and you're following the story here in Italy, maybe you never really know. Well, the Warrior does not regain his title here in Italy, at least not tonight. Women's champion Rockin' Robin over Judy Martin. And boy, I thought we saw this enough already. It was Demolition defeating the Powers of Pain by disqualification. Fuji trying to use the cane, but Demolition intercepting the cane, and they're caught using it. Fuji's the stooge there. And we don't have results for some of these other towns, April 10th and 11th in, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Sassari and Cagliari, Italy. And then the WWF scheduled to work April 13th in Palermo, Italy, but it was canceled. And I'm assuming it was canceled due to low ticket sales, which is odd because the WWF typically doesn't run Italy, so you would have thought they would have done pretty good on the numbers, but apparently not as successful as they thought coming here for a week in Italy, and thus the WWF will not return to the country until after WrestleMania 8, the European tour. And that's not an Italy tour. That's just a European tour. They're going to stop through Milan or something like that. They're not going to do a full-blown tour of Italy ever again. And I guess Vince testing the waters, it didn't really work out to his favor. They pulled the plug and they leave town early. I'm sure the wrestlers were happy about that, although they missed a payday. But I'm sure they're happy to get home a couple days or a couple more days of rest in between. But not so lucky here. And, of course, we know 92, that's when Vince is going to pivot to running more shows in Europe because they can't really draw here in the States as well as they had been. So that kind of makes sense, but it's crazy. Vince, clearly, you talk about grudges with the honky tonk man. Clearly grudges with Italy. Like, you motherfuckers don't want to come out? We won't come back for 3 years, pal.
And we're going to bring a shittier roster with us.
Yeah, that goes without saying, 1992. Well, we are now into the new season of the WWF here. Wrestlers back on the road beginning April 22nd. So yet 20 days off for those who were not part of that Italy tour, outside of the TV taping, of course. So nearly 3 weeks of rest and relaxation. Hopefully these guys are rehabbed, recovered, and ready to return on the road. We're going to look at the C show, B show, and A show in that order. Kind of look what's headlining here in some of the smaller towns, smaller venues. The C show, April 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Winston-Salem, North Carolina at the Coliseum. Knoxville, Tennessee at the Thompson Bowling Arena. And Moline, Illinois at the Wharton Fieldhouse. That does not sound Fieldhouse. We can't wait to see what's on this card here. Tom McGee, Mega Man over Tim Horner. Ronnie Garvin defeating Barry Horowitz. Now in Winston-Salem, this is fun. Ronnie Garvin's not on he's getting subbed around because Duggan's either injured or no-show. So in Winston-Salem, Ronnie Garvin works Haku rather than Barry Horowitz as he did in the other towns. Meanwhile, they call up a local worker to replace Ronnie against Barry Horowitz, and this is pretty fun. I thought it was fun anyway, for 1989 standards. They call up Nelson Royal, the Cowboy. Good old Nelson Royal, if anybody remembers, he was the one that described what the bunkhouse stampede was, sitting around the campfire, and I mean, he's about as old as dirt at this point. He looks like it anyway, and Nelson was longtime world junior heavyweight champion of the NWA. He's in his latter years here in the ring, certainly. It's fun to see Nelson Royal on a WWF event, though.
Imagine going to Winston-Salem and seeing Nelson
Holy
Royal.
shit. We're turning back time, Steve, is what we're doing here. Nelson, what the fuck's a Nelson Royal here? No, I think the Crockett city would probably remember Nelson, though, but to be fair, but at the same time, he's local to it, and he was stopping by and he just happened to have his gear in the trunk, or maybe somebody made a call, hey, Nelson's local, we could bring him in for whatever the situation was, but it just blew my mind. I had not seen this before until I was going through the results. Holy shit, Nelson Royal in the WWF in 89, no less, right? So also most of the nights, Jim Duggan over King Haku, Red Rooster defeating the Brooklyn Brawler, the Warlord over Coco Beware. Now, we do get the Rockers defeating the Rougeos on these shows, but the main event, the thing that's bringing the fans in, is Big John Studd and Andre the Giant. Most of those matches, all of those matches ending in disqualifications.
Rightfully so. Neither one of those guys are going to do the job to each other.
I don't even know what to make of this card. I wish I had numbers. I have no attendance for any of these shows. Very curious to see what this drew. Because honestly, you bring a couple Crockett guys and you bring in a Ronnie Garvin or something. You hope that, helps a little bit. But at the end of the day, Rockers and Rougeos just is not going to draw the house on its own. And maybe, you think the name value of Andre and Studd might, but I don't see it. It's a rough.
Not 1989.
No, it's a rough.
I wouldn't pay to see that. I wouldn't pay to see that at all.
Well, we've got a trio of B shows here. Boston Gardens, April 22nd, in front of 10,800 fans. So 11,000 out to the B show there in Boston. Also Cape Girardeau, Missouri at the Show Me Center on April 23rd. And April 24th, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 5 Season Center, all going to have the same cards roughly. Now, the Boston show, they're going to be here for another month or so on the New England Sports Network. Tony Schiavone, Lord Alfred Hayes on commentary. So we do get these matches. Now, in Boston only, this did not happen in the other two towns because it was Boston. They had to add an extra match to the card for TV purposes. So they bring in Greg Valentine to defeat the Blue Blazer. And the rest of the card's going to look pretty much similar. It's going to be the Barbarian over Jim Neidhart, Tito Santana battling Rick Martel to a no contest, Tag Champs Demolition over the Twin Towers by disqualification, the Genius making his television debut in the gimmick, Lanny Poffo, the Genius over Jimmy Powers. We've got Brutus the Barber Beefcake pinning Bad News Brown for television. My goodness. And wow. Rick Martel coming back to beat Tito Santana later in the night. Now, the first time they get in the ring, I said a no contest, basically Martel attacking Tito. And they did a lot of this around this time period where somebody would attack somebody early on the house show and they'd bring it back in the second half to add a little heat to the match, or whatever the case may be, and bring it back after intermission. That's what they do here with Rick Martel stealing the win, using the ropes for leverage there to pin Santana. Boston not only gets Valentine in the Blue Blazer, but to add a little extra little pepper to the show. Oh man, look what we get here in Boston only. The Honky Tonk Man pinning Hillbilly Jim. That's what I wanted to see here in Boston.
Oh yeah. I'm paying for that Boston seat just to see Honky and Hillbilly.
7.5 minutes. 7.5 minutes.
Wow.
What do we do? Lots of stalling there, I would have to imagine. The Ultimate Warrior defeating Ravishing Rick Rude on a count out. So they continue to work here. Bobby Heenan ringside, going to cause some interference. And the managers didn't necessarily work the house shows for quite a while leading into this, but I think they needed to use Heenan here to utilize the story and to help with the count out situation, etc. So Rude can retain the title, but the crowd can be happy now. While Boston got Valentine and the Blazer and Hillbilly and Honky Tonk, the other two towns got women's champion Rockin' Robin defeating Judy Martin. Now, for Vince to go out of his way and say, no, not only do we need an extra match for Boston, we're going to replace the women altogether as well, tells me there's not a lot of hope left in the women's division here moving forward.
Yeah, but also, too, like you sent them to non-televised places to carry it, maybe. I don't know. Help with it. Obviously, Rude and Warrior are going to carry the show, but maybe putting them on there helps them. I don't know. But now, did they run that gimmick, Martel and Tito, on the Boston show, similar to like what the notes were?
Yes.
Or was that the other two shows?
No, that was.
So he got hit with a chair, and then he came back and wrestled for 3 minutes.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. Well, they do that. They do that with Honky and Hillbilly too. They're going to have Honky attack Hillbilly and bring it back. And some towns
on the same show.
No. But I'm saying they use a similar thing on some of these house shows. You'll see, and on some of them they'll bring it back in the second half of the program. Some of it they'll announce the rematch for the next event because we can't wait for that rematch.
I'll be pissed if I had that.
I'm sure the box office was booming when they announced the rematch was coming back to town there in certain markets. Speaking of, we're going to go continue on to April 22nd through the 24th. These are the A shows. No TV here, unfortunately, for the Philadelphia Spectrum anymore. So, but we do have Philly on April 22nd in front of 14,000 fans. April 23rd, Maple Leaf Gardens, Toronto, in front of 19,000 fans, a sellout. And on the 24th, 16,000 fans, Madison Square Garden, New York City also aired. So the Toronto and New York City markets, there's footage out here of these events. Unfortunately, Spectrum no more. Prism no longer televising wrestling, so we don't have that. And in Philadelphia only, remember the ladies missed Boston. They were sent to Philly, so it was Rockin' Robin over Judy Martin in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, in Toronto and MSG, Greg Valentine over the Blue Blazer. Now we know they also worked Boston on the third night. So that brings us to similar cards all three nights. Dino Bravo pinning Hercules.
Oh, my God.
Hercules is the one if anybody was curious, Hercules is the one doing the jobs in this quote-unquote feud with the Canadian strongman.
Oh, my God. Look at the time. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah, 16 minutes. Yeah, I guess.
Oh, my
Dino
God.
Bravo. That's just, I believe that's just for the Madison Square Garden matchup between the two. But it could have been very well every night. Who really knows? Hillbilly Jim scoring a DQ victory. Here it is over the Honky Tonk Man in just a half a minute's time. Honky attacking Hillbilly with Jimmy Hart's megaphone. So that's going to lead to rematches at the following month's MSG. Can't wait for that. There you are. Jake the Snake Roberts pinning the $1 Million Man with the Schoolboy. Paul Roma over Boris Zukov. Macho Man Randy Savage defeating the WWF champion Hulk Hogan by countout. Sensational Sherry getting involved there. So Sherry already making her presence known in the main events. Also on the card, Bushwhackers over the Brainbusters and Mr. Perfect battling Bret Hart to a 20-minute time limit draw.
What a card. Look at the names. Just like the main matches. Yeah, Roberts and Ted.
You got to jump around because with the good comes the bad, obviously. We do see a few stinkeroos on there. At least the Honky Tonk Man's kept short, but you're right. Yeah, Hogan and Savage, you get that match. You get Bret and Mr. Perfect, Jake and DiBiase. So definitely a fun night there in Toronto and Madison Square Garden. The footage,
50,000 tickets in a 3-day window.
Yeah,
it's insane.
That is at 14,000, 19,000, and 16,000 strong for Hogan and Savage. So we kind of get an idea of the money they were making here on the loop coming out of WrestleMania. And Savage had 3 weeks to rehab that staph infection too, which was pretty damn important.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe he was actually scheduled for, if I'm not mistaken, for that Italy tour initially. Of course, Italian being or Savage being from Italian descent, maybe that was a thing. Maybe he wanted to be part of that, but obviously he's going to take that time off to rehab. And Macho Man is back working Hogan on the house shows. Also, another set of tapings here at the end of April 25th, Wrestling Challenge. Also a Saturday night's main event taping. Big John Studd over Andre by DQ. King Haku and Jim Duggan getting involved in that altercation. Also the Warrior and Savage continuing to work on the dark matches. As we fast forward, April 26th, Omaha, Nebraska, Civic Auditorium, a sellout of over 10,300 fans. And part of the Superstars taping, May the 13th, we're going to see a brand new logo and theme music for the show. So upcoming state, yes, absolutely, you're telling me. So coming up here in May 1989, we're going to see a brand new intro for WWF Superstars. The first change since it began in September of 1986.
Took them long enough.
Talk about being outdated. No kidding. Tom McGee also on a dark match again this week. I don't have his opponent here, but I'm assuming the Mega Man went over. Manager Jimmy Hart still with him. Listen to this tryout. Kendo Nagasaki. And of course, he has to be managed by Mr. Fuji's Japanese pal. You just got to, right? This is another one that stuck out to me, like Nelson Royal there filling in. Kendo Nagasaki getting a matchup here, scoring a win over Tim Horner. It doesn't work out for old Kendo.
It's unfortunate.
Not if you saw Kendo Nagasaki work in 1989, but it's everybody's getting a shot, right? Everybody's getting an opportunity.
That's right, yeah.
Kendo had moved to the United States, and he was looking for work, and they gave him an opportunity, and they gave him a manager, which means they really, they really gave him a shot. You can tell the difference. Usually they throw a guy out there to pacify him, or they don't really expect a lot. But when they give you a manager in a dark match, in a tryout match, obviously they feel like maybe perhaps we have something here. It doesn't work out for Kendo. Also, dark matches, Savage over Warrior by countout, John Studd over Andre by DQ, Hogan over Bossman in the cage. We've got a couple matches that are going to air on International Wrestling Challenge. Jimmy Snuka defeating the Honky Tonk Man, Honky doing the jobs. Jake Roberts pinning Greg the Hammer Valentine as well. Got some primetime matches upcoming, taped here for May the 8th. Tito Santana, I've never seen this before. An exclusive primetime Brother Love show, because this is how important Tito Santana is to the world. Tito gets to be on the Brother Love show, but it only airs on primetime. Arriba!
Wasn't that the highest rated show? Syndication.
Cable. Yeah, absolutely. Syndication was the whole world. If it happened on primetime, they don't even necessarily acknowledge that it happened at all, right? I mean, it's just filler for the most part. So you see a lot of guys, they don't really use in syndication, much like Ron Garvin and things, working more on primetime. And Tito gets his big rub, the big run on the Brother Love show, but it only happens on the USA Network. Also on the May 8th show, Hercules battling the Barbarian to a double count out, it looks like there. And May 15th, it's the Warlord over Tim Horner on primetime, and also the Brainbusters defeating the team of Coco Beware and the Blue Blazer on the May 15th primetime, and Blazer doing the job, so you kind of have an idea. And he's taking their finisher as well. So the writing's on the wall for Owen Hart already, unfortunately, here in the company, as the Blazer does the job. And it was honestly a glorified squash. I've seen this match, so it's not as exciting as you might think.
They're probably happy they got to work those two over the Bushwhackers. That little pause.
Yeah, a little break in the Bushwhacker action. Keep the sanity here as we continue on. We've got just a couple more house shows to look at. The C, B, and A shows once again from the 27th of April through the 30th. First, the C show, running 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th. Chattanooga, Tennessee, Municipal Auditorium. Jefferson Civic Center in Birmingham, Alabama. Huntsville, Alabama, the Von Braun Civic Center, and Augusta, Georgia Civic Center. And the C show, oh my gosh, we're right back to it. Tom McGee over Tim Horner. The Genius defeating Barry Horowitz. Barbarian over Jim Neidhart. It's the Rockers defeating the Rougeos. Hacksaw Jim Duggan scoring victories over King Haku. And once again, John Studd over Andre the Giant by disqualification. And again, surprisingly, no attendance figures for these shows.
Shocking.
I would not be shocked, and I'm not even joking, if these did not meet the thousands, if there were 4 digits in some of these numbers in some of these house shows.
Really?
I've seen it that low before with bad C shows, and I would not be shocked here at all.
I mean, if you're running like that kind of lineup, do you really need a C show?
Well, these guys need a C show or they wouldn't have a job, right? I mean, so they're happy for the C show for the time being anyway, you know. But I was thinking the same thing, reading something. Do we really need a C show right now? You know what I mean? So no, I'm total agreement with you. But these guys, you know, they want to get a paycheck, so they got to work where they can. Talk about paying dues, though. That's hog town, maybe, if you're working on the Andre Studd shows. We go to the B shows in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Hershey Park Arena on the 27th, run of only 3,000 fans. And also on the 28th, Rochester, New York at the War Memorial, as well as the 29th, Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Med Center, only 3,500 fans. And finally, the Forum in Montreal, April the 30th, a matinee show. And so we're going to look at some of the house shows here in Hershey and Rochester. The undercard a little different. Going to see Greg Valentine over Jimmy Powers, Bad News Brown pinning the Blue Blazer. Still Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart doing time limit draws around the 15-minute mark. Now we're going to have a slight alteration there in Minneapolis and Montreal. In Montreal, we're going to bring one of the locals, Richard Charlenden, to score a victory over Jimmy Powers. And then pretty much the matches level out for the remainder of the cards. Greg Valentine over the Blue Blazer, Red Rooster continuing to defeat Brooklyn Brawler. Demolition over Twin Towers by disqualification. The Barber scoring pinfalls over Bad News Brown. Don't let it be said Bad News didn't do jobs, guys. Rick Martel pinning Tito Santana, using the ropes for leverage. Sorry there. Honky Tonk Man over Hillbilly Jim, and the Warrior defeating Ravishing Rick Rude. And some nights double countouts, some nights Warrior going over by countout on his own.
That's not a bad lineup. The B shows are pretty solid.
Well, you got to look at it like this. These B shows are pretty solid. I'll agree with Demolition and Twin Towers. My goodness, you got Rick Martel and Tito feud coming out of the pay-per-view. Of course, Warrior and Rude, but still, even with Warrior and Rude and Demolition and the Towers, so 2 title matches, only drawing 3,000, 3,500 fans. So imagine what Andre and Studd were doing. Think about that for.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And then you got the A show.
Yeah, and then, of course, we have the A show, a little different here. WWF on the 27th through the 30th in the Portland, Maine area at the Civic Center. That one only drawing 3,500. Now, I'll get to why in a minute. Providence, Rhode Island on the 28th, 8,000 fans. Portland and Providence have no Hulk Hogan. That's why the numbers are a little lower, Steve. But let's see what happens when Hulk Hogan joins the tour, if you will, here in the 8 shows. Detroit, Michigan, Joe Louis Arena, April the 29th, 15,000 fans. And the Richfield Coliseum, April the 30th, 8,300. And those will not only include Hulk Hogan, they will include Zeus as the guest of Brother Love. Unbelievable. Zeus on the Brother Love show here on the house shows.
Wow. That's crazy.
Zeus. Well, they had to get him ready for TV, right? We know Zeus eventually,
quote
unquote, cut a promo, right? And this is where it all it all starts. So, all right, we're going to look at some of the results. So, with Hogan not in Portland, Maine, or Providence, Rhode Island, it's Randy Savage pinning Hogan's brother, his friend to the end, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, doing the jobs to Randy Savage in those towns. Now, Hogan going to come into work Randy in the two bigger cities here. On the undercard, Paul Roma over Boris Zukov, the Warlord defeating Koko Beware. The Hitman, Bret Hart, battling Mr. Perfect to a time limit draw. In most cities, in Ridgefield, it's Hennig scoring a pinfall victory over Bret Hart. Dino Bravo over the Mighty Hercules. Women's champion Rockin' Robin scoring victories over Judy Martin. The Bushwhackers defeating the Brainbusters. My goodness. Arn and Tully doing the job to Luke and Butch. What do you make of that?
What the hell are we doing?
We got to get over the new team, son. And they're the baby.
How are they winning? I wonder how the matches are ending. Like, is it shenanigans and it's like all of them in the ring together and they just catch them off guard? Or like, how do you do this to where it doesn't hurt the Brainbusters? Obviously, it's not on tape, so it doesn't matter. But
they do have a few matches on tape. If the Whackers win by pinfall, that's another story. Usually, whatever they were doing on the house shows, we might see that flipped on like a Boston or something because it's actually being televised and they're wanting to protect their assets or whatever you want to call it.
Right,
on the house shows, sometimes we would see different results. Certain guys going over you would never see in front of a TV camera. We won't let that be filmed, pal. But the Whackers do go over here every night of this last little bit of the loop. Jake Roberts pinning the $1 Million Man. Now, Jake's going to be written out here going into the month of May, but so far working DiBiase on the house shows is the Snake Man is scoring pinfalls over Ted DiBiase. And in the main event, Randy Savage scoring victories over Hulk Hogan, the WWF champion, by count out. And that's kind of why when I saw the Bushwhackers go over, I said, is Hogan losing here? Because, you got to keep the fan, you got to put a bunch of babies over on the underneath if your mega star is doing the job. But Hogan obviously not getting pinned here. He's going to retain the title. It's a count out, and I'm sure he's coming back and clearing the ring of Sherry, clearing the ring of Savage, and posing. Hogan must pose, pal. So I'm sure it sent the fan home happy every time out anyway. But it's something tells me they're going to bring these matches back.
Definitely sounds like it. Not a bad run out of Mania. These are really B and A shows are really solid. Honestly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's those C shows that really stick out, man. If it wasn't for the Rockers,
I feel bad for those two. They're not getting the money that they should be getting for how hard they're working.
No kidding. Yeah. So these guys are, they're paying their dues. Something tells me that Shawn Michaels fella, at the very least, is going to do okay in the future.
He'll
Marty
be all
Jannetty,
right.
Well, Jannetty's going to be his own worst enemy. He's kind of a Buddy Landell situation there, is Marty J. But he's going to get multiple attempts by Vince McMahon to try to use Marty. Marty's going to get a lot of opportunities, pal, as the case may be. So we start to see Beefcake trickle into some of the smaller A shows to work with the Macho Man. Hogan coming back for the bigger arenas, Detroit, Richfield Coliseum. So we'll see what happens here. If they bring him back next time around and maybe they implement a cage, I believe Elizabeth's going to get involved. Whatever they're going to do here to bring that match back, no doubt they're going to try to milk that for as much as they can financially, and rightfully so. This is the golden era. This is peak golden era. The mega powers are exploding before your very eyes. We did it on pay-per-view. Now we're going to bring it seated in an arena near you. And I thought that was well done, well booked there by Vince McMahon and crew in regards to Hogan
Absolutely.
and Savage. And, you want to bring it back again. So it all makes sense. We've got Martel and Tito we saw there. We're doing some angles with them. And Hillbilly and Honky Tonk. Boy, that really sticks out to me. That should be on the C show. I guess they didn't want to kill the crowd completely, though. Kill those things.
Yeah, we don't need we don't need that getting passed around the the community.
So they're really
C shows are terrible.
2 sets of TV tapings here in April, at the very beginning and the very end of April. So they're set for quite a while for TV. I don't know if we're going to get any TV tapings in May, honestly, now that I'm looking at it. So going to be interesting to see what happens in the month of May with everyone when we continue on the story. But first, when we return on the Grenade Guys, we're going to go back to the television proper. We're going to look at everything coming out of WrestleMania. We're going to see how Sherry winds up with the Macho Man. The Genius's very first vignette. Can't wait for that. I'll have the soundbite right here for you guys and so much more. As we continue on, the stories just keep turning here in the WWF. There's no off season, as they like to say. And we're going to find that out. We're going to see what happens here moving out of WrestleMania, moving into the spring, the good times here on WWF TV, many angles to come, and we'll be here for it right here on the Grenade. Steve, I want to thank you so much, man. It's been a very long time. I want to thank you for stopping by, though, man, and discussing a little fallout from WrestleMania, the news and the results.
Yeah, it's been a blast, man. Enjoyed talking to you, and can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely. Always fun learning new things, whether it's Nelson Royal or Kendo Nagasaki stopping through here for a one-off, or just some of the news and seeing some of the matches upcoming. And as much as it pains me to think about it in my head, I'm curious, so I'm going to go watch me a Bushwhackers Brainbusters match to see how good or bad it really was at this time period. But that's going to wrap it up here for this week, guys. When we return, likely 2 more weeks of WWF TV to cover here in the month of April, trying to play catch-up for the time away. And we're going to see what happens here in the first half of April. Like I said, we know Sherry will align with the Macho Man. We know the Macho Man's brother, kayfabe brother, the Genius, will make that gimmick appear before our eyes on the next episode as well. So lots of cool stuff coming. Brother Love, big angle coming there with Brutus the Barber Beefcake, also involving the Macho Man. Little spoiler for you. And we'll see what happens with all these guys here in the weeks to come. It's a fun time, fun season here in the WWF new season. Spring of 1989. Can't wait to see what happens next. But until next time, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you, Steve, for being here, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, just a final reminder to stop on over to the patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Please, if you have a couple bucks in your pocket, you want to try it out, you can cancel the subscription at any time. You don't need to remain on month to month if you don't like the content that we offer, but we certainly offer a ton of it at the all-access tier, the VIP tier, and, of course, the ultimate tier, a price level for everyone. So go check that out. All the information's right there for you, right in front of your eyes. But until next time, this is Ray Russell on behalf of Stephen Eckstadt saying from pillar to post and coast to coast, you pull the pin, we'll pick up the pieces right here on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. I'll see you next week. Don't miss it. Be there!
Tonight, I mentioned the perfect record, a man who can certainly threaten that. Bret the Hitman Hart, you'll be facing him here tonight at Madison Square Garden.
I certainly don't want to take one thing away from Bret the Hitman Hart. He probably is the greatest technician in the World Wrestling Federation. Till now, you might be the greatest technician, my friend, but I am absolutely perfect. I have no flaws, I have no blemishes, and just as my record stands, it has no blemishes either.
A ridiculous situation here, because you, Hulk Hogan, yeah, I'm telling you, I'm taking everything from you. I'm taking your heart, I'm taking your soul, I'm taking your spirit, I'm taking the yellow and the red, I'm taking every pukemaniac out there and turn them into macho madness freaks, yeah. I'm taking the belt, because this is the time that the madness is going to do his thing. Did you hear that, Hulk Hogan? Yeah, and right behind me, I've got someone who's lovely and gorgeous and beautiful all at the same time. It's sensational Sherry, yeah.
Hulk Hogan, what are you gonna do when this gorgeous man runs wild on you? And once again, Randy Savage, you will be the World Wrestling Federation undisputed champion.